William Davis, an American who had just been left by his fiancée, sympathized with a homeless woman and her baby and let them sleep in his house for one night. But when he woke up the next morning, he realized his life would never be the same. William entered the hospital well-dressed. He was a handsome man, but his worried expression indicated something was wrong. His wife, Helen, accompanied him both in the walk and with a serious look. When a doctor opened the door to his office, calling William in, he froze. William looked at Helen, hoping she would accompany him, but she was looking at her phone screen and said she would wait outside. Alone, the man entered the office. 20 minutes later, at the end of the appointment, William left the office stunned. What he heard from the doctor was not what he expected, and all he needed at that moment was support. "Are you done? Can we leave?" Helen asked sharply. William replied yes, and the couple left the hospital, distanced. William felt desolate and walked automatically, barely aware of where he was going. Helen walked beside him, saying nothing, just typing on her phone. In the car, the woman finally put away the device, sighed, and looked at him firmly. "Well, from your behavior, you won't be able to give me an heir." The lump in William's throat prevented him from responding. He needed a few seconds to gather his thoughts and said, "There are still some test results pending. My hope is still—" "I don't have time to wait, William," the woman interrupted. "I'm an independent woman. I've achieved what I wanted with my career, and now I want a child. If I had known about your incapacity earlier—" By this point, William no longer heard what his wife was saying. Through the car window, he observed a moving scene. Sitting on a street bench was a young woman with a tired and weary expression. She was holding a crying baby in her arms. William's heart ached at the sight of that homeless mother trying to soothe her baby. "Wait a second, I'll be right back," William said to Helen, who was confused and asked him to go home immediately, but William ignored her and continued walking. William entered a small diner and came out carrying sandwiches and a bottle of juice. Then he walked towards the woman with the baby. As he approached them, William introduced himself and, extending the food, said with a smile, "Here, I hope this makes your day better." The woman looked at him confused and a little scared. When she saw that the man was offering her food, she took the package and thanked him. However, amidst that tender moment, Helen honked the car and shouted through the window in a tempestuous manner, "Let's go now, William. This is no time for charity." The woman with the baby lowered her head in embarrassment and again thanked for the food. Her voice came out as a whisper. William got into the car and didn't even have time to start the engine. "May I know what that was, William? Interacting with those kinds of people. Is this just to embarrass me? You seem to love it." William replied that he was just trying to help someone in a delicate situation. Helen added that his supposed heroic attitude didn't help their situation at all. "You have more important things to worry about, don't you think?" Helen concluded. William closed his face and preferred to remain silent. That night, while Helen slept beside him, William sat on the bed, feeling a mix of anguish and revolt. It was as if someone had taken away the possibility of fulfilling his greatest dream, to be a father. He got up and left the room, walking down the house corridor and stopping in front of a door. When he gathered the courage to open it, tears finally rolled down his face. The room was beautifully decorated to welcome a baby. It was evident that a lot of love and dedication had been put into it. William sat in the armchair, in the dark, and eventually fell asleep there. A few days passed, and William and Helen went back to the hospital for the results of the last tests William had done. As before, Helen did not want to accompany him, and William entered the office alone. He sat down and listened as the doctor explained what his tests indicated. "I'm sorry, but I don't have good news," the doctor said with a serious expression. "Both the sperm analysis and the DNA test conclusively diagnosed that you are infertile and will never be able to have biological children," the doctor concluded. Those words weighed on his shoulders like a rock. Devastated, William left the office without saying a word. Helen didn't ask any questions, as if she had already understood everything from her husband's expression. When the two arrived home, William sought comfort in his partner's arms while crying, but all he found was anger. "You know my dream has always been to be a mother, William. If you can't give me a child, I don't know how I can be happy. This is not fair to me. William argued that his infertility was a chance occurrence. He was as devastated as she was. If it's not your fault, whose is it then? I can get pregnant. I'm perfectly healthy. If you were a real man, I would already be pregnant, Helen said, stabbing William for good. William couldn't believe what he was hearing, and his arguments ceased. Helen had crossed all the limits. Hurt and feeling alone, William saw his wife pack some personal items in a small suitcase. I'm going to my father's house. Someone will come to pick up the rest of my things in the next few days, Helen said as she slammed the door behind her. Without thinking, William went to the shelf and grabbed a bottle of wine. He had stopped drinking years ago, but at that moment, all he wanted was to numb the devastating feeling. He downed 2 glasses at once, and by the third, he was already feeling dizzy. Desolate, William left the house. Besides dealing with the fact that he would never be a biological father, something that was his greatest dream, he also had to deal with his wife's abandonment. This whirlwind of problems led him to spend the night drinking in bars until he got drunk. In the cold night, William walked slowly until he reached a bridge. He leaned on the railing and remembered happy moments he lived with Helen, especially when the two decorated and prepared the room for the much-anticipated baby. However, at that moment, what should have been a beautiful memory had become a curse. All William felt was growing anguish. With a shaky gait due to all the alcohol consumed, William looked more like a ghost. A cacophony of voices filled his head, but the voice that stood out the most was the doctor's, saying, "You are infertile and will never have biological children." Altered by alcohol and pain, he began gesturing, imitating the doctor's movements in a melancholic way. Gradually, William approached the edge of the bridge as the cold wind blew in his face, alerting him that he was crossing the safety limits. In his mind, the same questions tortured him. Why did I achieve a 3-story house, a car, and a fat bank account if I don't have a wife and a child to enjoy all this with? At the edge of the bridge, practically hanging, he looked down, saw the dark water, and took the last sip of the bottle he was carrying when he heard a shout, "Hey, buddy!" At first, William thought he was hallucinating, but after squinting his eyes, he gasped. A few meters from him was a woman with a baby in her arms. Looking closer, William recognized her. It was the same woman he had seen outside the hospital. Exaggerated by the drink, he said, "I remember you." At that moment, the baby in the woman's arms began to cry. The baby's cry had an unexpected effect on William, as if it pulled him back to life. William moved away from the edge of the bridge and asked, "Why is she crying? Did I scare her?" In a low tone, the woman replied, "If I don't eat, how can I feed her?" Hearing this, the businessman felt extremely uncomfortable. While he was about to give up everything, other people were standing firm without even knowing how to feed their children. "Come with me, let's buy something for you to eat," William said, embarrassed. The woman looked suspiciously at William, but did not refuse the offer. They walked toward a nearby store. The sway of the walk in her mother's arms calmed the baby again. Walking through the store aisles, the woman said her name was Nancy, and the baby in her arms was her daughter, Anne. As they walked, William asked if she was raising her daughter alone on the streets, to which the woman replied that she had been abandoned by her boyfriend when he found out she was pregnant. She had grown up in an orphanage and lived with him, so she lost both her partner and her roof at once. Nancy managed to afford a modest rent for a few months until she was evicted for non-payment. William listened to the story and felt disgusted, especially since it was a sensitive subject for him. "I don't understand how someone abandons the woman carrying their own child. It's unacceptable," William said, unable to hide his indignation. Nancy and her daughter had been living on the streets for 2 weeks. Despite being in a difficult situation, she was still a well-groomed, articulate, and intelligent woman. The young mother felt awkward receiving help from a stranger, so she carefully chose discounted items from the shelves and put them in the cart. Seeing that, William said it wasn't necessary. "Don't worry about the prices. Pick the best quality items." Nancy relaxed for the first time since they met and responded with a gentle smile. "I will use your money as if it were mine. I'll take the discounted items. There's nothing wrong with them." Surprised, William just nodded. As they left the store, William said, Look, I live alone now, and in my house, I have a guest room where you can stay the night." Nancy was immediately frightened by the man's proposal. She handed William the bag she was holding, returning everything she had gained from him. "No, I appreciate it, but I'd rather continue with my life. Goodbye." William understood Nancy's mistrust and said, "I understand you don't trust me, and you shouldn't. After all, I'm a stranger. But I swear I have no ulterior motives. I was abandoned by my wife today, and in a moment of weakness, I almost did something foolish. Maybe you and your daughter saved my life, and I will be forever grateful to you. I am a good person and just want to repay you." At that moment, the baby in Nancy's arms smiled at William, made a cute sound, and then laughed. Baby Ain was having fun watching William's expressions. That laugh from her daughter made Nancy relax a bit. She remembered the day she received the sandwich and the bottle of juice from that same man and how the woman in the car had yelled at him, "We'll just eat and take a shower, and then we'll leave, okay?" Nancy said. William smiled and replied, "Sure," agreed. The three went to William's house, and upon arriving at the place, Nancy was amazed. It wasn't a luxurious mansion, but it was more than the woman had ever had. William led her to the living room and placed the groceries on the table, asking for permission to leave the room. When he returned, he handed Nancy some clothing options. "I bought these for my ex-wife, but she didn't like them. If you want, they're yours. I also have these clothes for your baby, and you can take a shower there," William said, pointing to a room. "Make yourselves at home. I'll quickly prepare something for us to eat." Nancy took her daughter in her arms and went to the suite. Upon entering the room, she noticed it was a nursery, fully designed to accommodate a child, which left her perplexed. She took a shower, bathed her daughter, and breastfed her until Ain fell asleep. William prepared a simple dinner and was surprised when Nancy re-entered the room with Ain in her arms. She didn't look like the same woman he had met on the street minutes earlier. Nancy gently placed Ain on the living room couch and sat at the table. The young mother devoured the meal with great appetite. William watched her with affection, feeling compassion for that woman challenged by life. And right there, Ain rested warmly and safely for the first time in weeks. At that moment, a previously unknown feeling awakened in William's heart, bringing him a sense of comfort and coziness. He was experiencing, even if only imaginatively, the feeling of having a loving family. William chose not to delve into Nancy's past or ask uncomfortable questions. He had already understood the main thing. Nancy and Ain had no one to lend them a hand except him. "Do you have children?" Nancy asked, starting a conversation. William swallowed hard before answering the question. With a shaky voice, he replied that he couldn't have children, although he always wanted to. "I was sure I would be a father soon, so I decorated the room and got everything ready. I even dreamed about it. But my dream turned into a nightmare after countless attempts with my ex-wife," he said, still with a trembling voice. Realizing that William was getting emotional, Nancy apologized for touching on a subject she didn't know was sensitive, and William reassured her. "Don't worry, Nancy. Actually, I'm the one who should apologize. I was never in the state you found me today. I found myself falling into an increasingly deep and dark hole. If it weren't for you, William stammered, unable to finish the sentence, and Nancy placed her hand on his. "It's okay now. We all have a dark side, but we need to keep faith in ourselves and know how to accept help when it appears. That's why I accepted your invitation." For the first time in a long time, William felt understood. And it wasn't by the woman he had spent the last few years with, but by that stranger he had met on the street days before. They finished the meal, and Nancy took Ain from the couch. William insisted they sleep in the baby's room, and this time, the young mother did not refuse. Nancy went to the room and placed Ain sleeping in the crib. She looked at the room's decor, and every detail was filled with love and tenderness. Tears welled up in her eyes as she watched her daughter sleep under the dim light of the bedside lamp. At that moment, William appeared at the door, smiled, and wished them both good night, leaving. At that moment, Nancy imagined William passing by the room every day, fully aware that he would never hear a child's laughter in there. The next day, Nancy was surprised to be awakened by another resident of William's house, a cat named Chips. Chips liked the presence of the mother and daughter and began rubbing against Nancy's leg, purring affectionately and touching her ankle with his paw. "Good morning, cutie," Nancy exclaimed, scratching the animal behind the ear. William had woken up earlier and immediately prepared breakfast for Nancy. Coffee, bread, eggs, and various fruits served on the table. While they were eating, William's cell phone alarm rang, leaving him pale with surprise. It was a reminder of an important business trip, which William had forgotten because of the whirlwind his life had become in recent days, besides the drinking of the previous day. In a hurry, William told Nancy that he needed to get ready to catch a plane, but she could stay there without any problem. Nancy hesitated, to which William responded, "We need to know how to accept help, right? It makes no sense for you and Ain to sleep on the street when this apartment will be empty. Plus, who will take care of Chips for me?" William finished with a convincing smile. Nancy thought for a few seconds, and William breathed a sigh of relief when she finally accepted the proposal. Before leaving, Nancy made a sandwich for William and timidly told him she would wait for him eagerly. When William said goodbye to Nancy at the door, the man felt he would miss Nancy and Ain and said, "I'll come back as soon as I can. Please wait for me. I feel something good and true between us." Nancy nodded in agreement, and William said goodbye. Weeks passed, and William and Nancy talked daily through video calls. During these conversations, the young mother showed Chips and also her daughter Ain. The relationship between them grew closer each day through long conversations filled with laughter and deep subjects. Helen had filed for divorce, and although the reason hurt William, the happiness he felt when talking to Nancy was greater than he had ever felt with his ex-wife. William returned home weeks later, holding a bouquet of white roses. Now he knew exactly what he wanted in life and realized it hundreds of miles away. "Nancy, would you like to be my girlfriend?" William said emotionally. Nancy accepted, and they kissed. Months passed, and their relationship grew even stronger. One night, as they were leaving a restaurant, William was carrying Ain in his arms when he crossed paths with his ex-wife Helen at the door, who was completely surprised by the scene. The calmness with which William handled the situation made him even more aware that he was now with the right person. Helen seemed confused. "William, is that you?" "This baby. But how?" William walked towards his car without paying much attention. "Sorry, my daughter needs to go to bed. Good night." Nancy tightened her grip on William's waist and accompanied him, holding back tears as she confirmed that her daughter now had a father. Nancy and William got married, uniting their hearts at the altar. William's friends and acquaintances admired the beautiful and unusual encounter, wishing the couple much happiness. Nancy held his hand, and the three got into the car. William drove towards a life full of love and challenges, as the father and husband he had always dreamed of being. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a like. And this other video appearing on the screen now will probably touch you as well. Enjoy, and see you in the next video.